legal. Ó, queria dizer que eu estou muito feliz de estar aqui. É um dia muito especial para todos nós. É como se fosse o Natal dos empreendedores, né? A gente se encontra uma vez por ano. Então aqui é importante a gente estar aqui hoje. Todo mundo vem, lá fora está rolando um monte de coisa. Então vocês têm aí no crachá de vocês têm a programação. E vocês devem ter visto que é dividido em 4 blocos. Esse primeiro bloco agora é de gestão de produtos. Então assim, como é que uma ferramenta, que a gente falou tanto de ferramenta agora, como é que uma ferramenta tem que ser formatada para entregar para o cliente? O que você tem que fazer? Que features você tem que ter? Como é que funciona isso? Gestão de produtos é uma área que mistura um monte de coisa, mistura tecnologia, marketing, vendas e um monte de outras coisas. Então agora, para começar, sem mais delongas, eu gostaria de chamar ao palco ele, que é um gaúcho que mora em São Francisco, ele é gremista, e o que ele vai fazer? Ele vai contar a história de como é que foi o lançamento do Dropbox para times e como a gestão cuidadosa do produto aumentou a conversão dos trials e trouxe mais clientes para a empresa. Quero chamar ao palco agora Marcio von Muhlen, do Dropbox. Vem para cá.
So it's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Marcio. I'm going to talk about delighting customers at Dropbox. And first I'll start by saying I love being here in São Paulo, Brazil. I'm actually from Porto Alegre, which is not too far away, and I'm super proud of all the Brazilians that are involved in startups both here and abroad. So congrats, it's great to be one of them. So I'm going to talk about 3 topics about Dropbox today. First, our mission. Then some of our processes in the product team. So how do we build product, how do we ship? And finally, some of our learnings. So what have we learned over time? How can we share that with you? And to start with our mission, we have to start with the mission so you understand why we do it, what motivates us, and also how that mission has changed over the years. So Dropbox started back in 2007, almost 10 years ago. And it was a very different world back then. So you may remember when we went from one device to many. And that's where Dropbox got started. By being that magic folder that let you get access to all of your content no matter where you are and no matter what device you are on. So this really took off. It was really popular. And we discovered, we were surprised to discover that the value was not so much in storage, it was more about being able to access your content and collaborate with your team, no matter where you work. So that value is what got people to bring Dropbox to businesses all over the world. So fast forward to today, and now we have a different problem. Instead of no cloud, we have too many clouds. There are hundreds and thousands of services online, and they don't all get along. So if I'm on the red cloud and you're on the blue cloud, we can't see each other. It's not easy for us to work together. And that's by design. That's on purpose. So what do? We fall back to more primitive tools, cutting and pasting content from one place to the other. And of course, email. So email's been around for a very long time, but it's kind of the universal tools. It's what you use to reach people no matter where they are. So we think there's a better way at Dropbox to connect all of these services, all this content, all these tools. And so Dropbox more and more is about tying it all together. Bringing you the best of the file world and what's coming after files as well. And so a year ago, in order to guide us on this journey, we launched a new company mission. which is to simplify the way that people work together. And I'm going to talk today about how this mission inspires and guides the product team in what we do. All right, so let's, but before we get into that, I'd love to share some of the momentum that we've had and some of the successes that have brought us here and that we can build on. So Dropbox today is used by over 500 million people all over the world. And we're in 200,000 businesses with our Dropbox business product. And the majority of these users, actually over 75%, are outside the United States. And we're really proud of that. So for example, that includes companies from the very smallest startups, so just a few people getting started, and maybe that represents a lot of you, all the way to iconic global brands. So for example, over in Germany, Adidas Group is a customer. And I love this one personally. I grew up playing soccer, football here in Brazil, of course. And my chuteiras were Copa Mundials, which is made by Adidas. And now I get to build a product that Adidas is using so that their employees can collaborate around the world. Another example, their customer is Dentsu in Japan. And they're a PR and advertising agency. And they used to send these DVDs, they used to mail DVDs all over the world to their customers to get them large files for their campaigns. And now they've replaced that, so now they use Dropbox. And then finally, here in Brazil, we have customers like Viva Real, who I actually believe are speaking later today, so that's awesome. So they're a marketplace for real estate. And they're all over the country, vast country, and they use Dropbox for their employees to stay connected back to headquarters. So that's a little bit of our momentum and what we're about. So now let's talk about how do we do it? How does the product team create a great product that's been so successful? And for that, I'll talk about our process, and I'll focus on three key themes. Three values that we think about every day and that really guide all the product decisions that we make. And the first one is empathy. So this is about how do we learn from our customers and how do we bring those insights back to the team so they can drive product decisions. And the second one is simplicity. How do we make the complex simple, both in our products and even more importantly, in the lives of our customers when they're using our product. And finally, impact. How do we make sure that what we build matters? No one wants to build a product that just gets ignored or doesn't actually solve any big problems. So let's start with empathy. So empathy for us means getting to know our customers really well. And the way we do that is we spend a lot of time with them. So everyone on the product team, including myself, spends thousands of hours every year talking to customers. And we actually, we really value spending time with them in person. And that way we can, look over their shoulders, get to know them well, see the intricate, the fine details of their working lives and their daily workflows. And it's really important to do this in person if you can. There's something about being in a room with someone and watching them get their job done that you just don't capture over a phone or over a survey, or if you're reading a report by an analyst that's like a third party. It's really valuable to go and speak to those customers in person. And there's also this magical concept that you can see all the transitions. What are people doing right before and right after they're using your product or something like your product. And it's in those transitions, the things that happen around your product, that you can get a lot of insights. And you can really learn, how does your product fit into people's lives. Now, the way we do this is a couple ways. Often people come to our office in San Francisco, and we have special rooms and all that. But much more often, we're out on the road. So we're traveling, we're going to wherever people work. And that might be an office, it might be a coffee shop, it might be the field. It really doesn't matter the details. What matters is that we get out there and we talk to our customers where they are. Now, of course, we also want to have, we want to learn from larger groups. And so for that, we do leverage other tools like surveys, coming to conferences like this where we can meet more of our users. And then finally, we can always step back and look at our analytics and look for trends on how our users are using the product across the world for all the hundreds of millions of users that we have. But I'll just really emphasize, the analytics are actually one of the things we spend less time on, and having that close customer contact is one of the things that we value a lot more. So what are we finding? Well, there are more tools than ever. There's more ways than ever for people to create and capture digital content. And all these options are great, but they can also be confusing, can also be complicated. So if you track someone's workflow, you can see that there can be all these steps to do something really simple, like taking a receipt or a manual and just digitizing that and making it so that you can share it or you can archive it. And in between all these steps, like all these jumps that people have to make, are opportunities. And they're opportunities for products like Dropbox and for all the great products that you all are building. And it gets really interesting when you focus on the people and the relationships that people have with each other, both within the business and outside of business. So recently I was speaking to a 3-person creative agency in Los Angeles. And as we started talking to this team, and we were learning that this team works with several clients, and they also have several contractors. And they put together a team for each project that they do. And these teams can be pretty complicated. So this producer here in the middle is actually a member of many teams. And there's a lot of flexibility in this. There's a lot of power for that person. But again, there's also a lot of complexity. And we wouldn't have learned about all these teams and all these relationships if we just looked at that agency, that one 3-person group in the middle. It really took the effort of going out and mapping these relationships so that we could understand how important these teams are. Now, the other thing we've done, I've talked a lot about going out and talking to customers, spending time with them. We have to bring this information back to our teams, and we have to share it widely. And so, for example, this diagram is something that we made to bring back to the office, to share with our designers, with our engineers. And it's really important that everyone on your team is aware who are they building this product for. And that's because every day, everyone who's building your product is making a ton of small decisions. And no matter how detailed your spec is or how closely you're trying to follow the product, they're going to be making these decisions regardless. And you want those decisions to be made with your customer's best interests in mind. You want everyone on that team to really understand how is the customer going to use the product. And that way, those decisions are going to lead to a better product, a product that delights your customers. So, we bring back these assets, we bring back video clips. There's nothing like showing a 30-second clip of a user who's really trying hard but struggling to use a product. And you show that to the team, and right away you can focus on, what's working, what's not working, where do we need to go from there. Okay, so that's a little bit about going out and understanding the customer. Now, once you have that, how do you build a product that they love? How do you make it so that your product fits into their life and it makes their life better? and makes it clear for them what your product is for. So at Dropbox, one of the ways we really like to do this is to think about simplicity. So how do we remove steps and options, both in the product and in the customer's life? And in order to do that, to tell you about this, I'm going to give you an example. And I'm going to motivate the example by talking about a customer and talking about the problems that we saw in their life. So this is one of our customers, GIW Minerals, and they're a global manufacturing company. And they've been around for a long time. Looks like we're stuck. Maybe out of battery. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay, so they've been around for a long time, over 100 years, and there are several thousand employees, and they're in many different countries. So this is a photo of them working 100 years ago, and here's one of their factory floors now. So they sell these big slurry pumps all over the world. And when we talked to them, when we first talked to them, we saw that their sales team had these massive binders of technical specifications, and they're carrying these around to help them sell their products to their customers. And for any of you who traveled to get here, just imagine, carrying 10 of these in your luggage. It's like 20 kilograms. And you're lugging it around and just hoping the airlines, don't lose your bags. So that was a challenge for them. And with Dropbox and other products, these companies are in the middle of digitizing how they work. We're seeing this big, trend of businesses moving away from pen and paper and toward digital workflows. And Dropbox is really proud to be a part of that. Now, within this business, we were very excited to do more than we had in the past. And so I'll tell you about a feature that I worked on and helped launch and how we were motivated to do it. So one of the things we noticed while walking around this customer site is how often the smartphone photo was being used in manufacturing. So we literally noticed all these people taking out their phones and taking photos of parts, both in the assembly floor and at the customer site. And it turns out that these photos are being used for quality control, so they can keep track of where things are. And it looks pretty simple, right? Just take a photo. But if you think about it, there's a whole lot of steps that are required to make that photo useful. It has to have a name. It has to be organized somewhere. Someone has to be told that this asset exists. So if you actually go and map this workflow, there's a lot of steps that are involved. And we literally do this in the product team. We take index cards or post-it notes, and we write out, each card is one action, it's one decision, it's one click. And you lay out all these cards on a table, and for something that might seem simple, you'd be surprised at how many steps are involved. And the workflow can take an entire table. So we looked at that and thought, can we make it simpler? Can we cut out some of the steps in this workflow for this customer? And in this case, we could. So, in this case, we created a feature that helps this customer, and the feature is called the document scanner. And it's essentially, looks like there's a video here. Okay. So the way this feature works is you press a button, you take a photo in the Dropbox app, and it automatically processes that image. So it's going to extract any text. It's going to make a PDF. It's going to make that PDF searchable. And it does all of this automatically. So in developing this feature, so coming back, it does all this automatically, and now we've saved all those steps from that user. And we've also made it easier a few months down the line for anyone else in that company that wants to search for and find this photo. Now, when we developed this feature, we also thought about how do we make it as simple as possible? How do we have as few steps to use it as possible? And so, for example, this feature of doing the text extraction and making it searchable, it's something that happens every time the user takes a photo. There's not an option or a decision they have to make. Do I want to turn on, text extraction and optical character recognition on every photo? Most people don't know what optical character recognition is. So we just took that step in the new workflow and threw it in the garbage bin. Just make it automatic, make it simple, make it so the user doesn't have to think about it. And that's part of what's made this feature a big success. All right, so I talked about empathy and simplicity. And if you have just those two things, you can make beautiful products. You can make things that impress other people who make products. But in a way, if you only have those two things, it's kind of like you're making art. And art is great, but in order to have a business, you have to have impact. And in order to have impact, you have to focus on solving your customers' biggest problems. And so let me walk you through one way that we think about that. So in Silicon Valley, there's this question that you hear all the time when you're pitching or talking about a product. Is your product a vitamin or a painkiller? Is your product something that people need to have? And do the current solutions have some clear pain points? Another way we say this, is this a hair on fire problem? Can you just imagine if your hair is on fire and it's burning, that's a real urgent priority for you to resolve, right? Now, it turns out most of the products and features that we see don't succeed. And it's not because they're not working. The software tools are really good today. It's not that hard to build a product that does what it's designed to do. But the problem becomes that a lot of these problems are not solutions to needs that a lot of customers have. So in other words, they're vitamins. They're nice, but they can often be ignored. So we at Dropbox really want to avoid that problem. We want to create painkillers. And when you create a painkiller, you can tell. Your customers will use the product, and they'll go beyond that. They'll tell you how to make it better. They'll tell their friends about it. They'll tell their colleagues. They'll write blog posts. They'll tweet about it. It's awesome to make a painkiller. So how do we do it? How do we know whether you're making a painkiller or not, or making a vitamin? So again, it comes back to customers. It comes back to having that empathy so you understand what your customers' biggest problems are. And it's not always obvious. You have to get out there and talk to them. And so for that, I'll introduce another customer of Dropbox. This is 401, and they're an architect agency in London. So they're a small company. They're only about 30 people, but they're doing some big projects. So right now, they're in the middle of redesigning the King's Crossing station in London, which is this really iconic site. And the process for this customer is something that's evolving. So they're architects. They start with pencil sketches, and then they create digital assets. And then these digital assets turn into 3D models of actual buildings. And each of these buildings can be hundreds of files. And they're all in Dropbox today. Now, let's step back for a moment and just think about who is this customer? What's important to them? What are their pain points? Well, they're an architecture agency. So one of their biggest differentiators, the thing that matters to them, and one of their biggest expenses is the architects. And these are creative professionals. They're highly trained, they're certified, and they're living and working in one of the most expensive cities in the world, which is London. So making those architects efficient is really important for 401. It's something that they deeply care about. If they can make their architects more efficient, they can have smaller teams. And in a smaller team, every architect has more impact. So they're going to be happier. There's less coordination costs of keeping people up to date. And of course, they're going to save on salary and office expenses. So these are all really critical things to running an agency like 401. So when we were thinking about this customer and how do we help them, we really wanted to focus on how do we make the architects more efficient. And to do that, we have to know, well, where are they spending time today? What are the things that they're doing on a day-to-day basis? So it turns out one of the things they do a lot of is give feedback. So architects collaborate on each other's work. And the way we saw them doing this was by printing out designs like this one, and by emailing around copies of files. Now, we know at Dropbox that these two things have problems. So a printout can get lost, and in order to see the feedback on a piece of paper, you have to be there. You can't share that with people in another office. And emailing files around can lead to version control hell. It's really hard to know, are you on the latest file or not? So here was a clear pain point for a customer. The current workaround is not great. And in addition, it's not just for this architecture firm, but any business that has creative professionals, that has designers, is going to have a problem similar to this one. So that's when we knew we had the opportunity to create a killer feature. So that's what we did. So the feature in this case is something we call annotations. And an annotation is like a comment on a file, but better, because the user can specify exactly where on a design does the feedback apply to. And they can use @mentions, they can bring in other people. The comment becomes archived and searchable. And it does a great job of replacing that feedback cycle on paper or over emails. So this feature has been a big hit with customers like 401 because it's a real painkiller for them. It's addressing one of the things that's most important to their business in a simple way that delights that customer and makes them more successful. All right, so I told you about our process, and now I'll talk about our learnings. So what have we learned? How do we see these learnings being applied outside of Dropbox? So let's go back to those same three themes. And let's start with empathy. So talking to your customers is crucial. It's so important. And the alternative, sometimes you see people starting a product or a business with technology. And technology is great, and we love technology, and you need great craftsmanship to make terrific products. But if you start with technology, you will often make a product that doesn't actually solve a customer need. And then it will be ignored, and that's no fun. So I really recommend you do this early and often. And it's not something that you do after you've built a product. That's something you start on before you build a product. And it's something you keep doing. You keep doing through your prototype, through your alpha, through your beta, after you've launched. Just always be continuously talking to your customers, developing that empathy about what they care about, and bring that back to your team. shared that with everyone else so they know who they're building for. Second, simplicity. Keep your product simple. Try to have as few steps and as few options as possible. So I'll give you an example. Let's say your product onboarding at some point has 3 options. Option A, option B, option C. And let's say you learn that 80%, 90%, majority of your users are choosing option A. Go ahead, take options B and C and try to get rid of them. Don't have that option. Everyone gets option A. By making your product simpler, you've just removed a step in a decision that every single user was going to have to make. And users don't like making decisions. They don't like options. So they'll really thank you for having that. And later, you'll be able to build your products and add to your features in an easier way because all of your users are going to be using the product with that same option. And you might think that makes your product less powerful if there are fewer options. You can't customize it, fewer use cases. And to that I would say, sometimes that's true. But more often, what makes your product powerful is that a lot of people are using it. Both people that are finding it out, as well as in a business, people who get your product without needing training, without needing a support manual, without struggling to figure out what the heck it does. So keep your product simple. Your users will thank you. And then finally, impact. So another way to think about this, how do you solve your customer's biggest problems? Well, if you're selling to a business, you can think about it this way. You're trying to sell a promotion. So someone in that business has to decide to buy your product and to use it, distribute it within their team. How do you make that person successful? How do you make that person look good to their bosses? If you are doing this, if you are making them successful, in order to do that, you have to be solving their biggest problems. You have to understand, what are they struggling with? And if you do that, you will make them successful. And if you make that customer successful, they in turn are going to make you successful. Because they're going to use your product. They're going to try to get more adoption. They're going to tell their colleagues about it. So you get this wonderful virtuous cycle. And if your customer, if they don't have a boss, if they're their own boss, then make their bottom line better. Make them increase their sales. Make them decrease their costs. Right? If you focus on these things, you will delight your customer. And if you do it with a simple product that's easy to love, you will be super successful. And that's what's been working for Dropbox. So to recap, we talked about simplifying the way people work. And we talked about these 3 values that really guide the product team and everything that we do. Empathy, simplicity, and impact. And we're going to continue to follow those values at Dropbox. And I'd love to see all the companies that you're building these values as well. And hopefully I can have one of you as one of our customers up here in future years. So thank you very much. Appreciate the invite and thanks for listening. I think we have time for some questions. All right, that's it. Thank you. We got it. Actually, I think we're running a little bit behind, so I think we're going to skip ahead to the next talk. So thanks everyone.